Our scripture reading this morning is from the book of Ezra, chapter 1, verses 1 through 8. In the first year of King Cyrus of Persia, in order that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be accomplished, the Lord stirred up the spirit of King Cyrus of Persia, so that he sent a herald throughout his kingdom and also in a writing, and it declared. Thus says King Cyrus of Persia, the Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has changed me to build him a house of Jerusalem in Judah. Any of these among you who are of his people, may their God be with them, are now permitted to go up to Jerusalem in Judah and rebuild the house of the Lord, the God of Israel. He is the God who is in Jerusalem, and let all survivors in whatever place they reside be assisted by the people of their place with silver and gold, with goods, with animals, beside free will offering for the house of God in Jerusalem. The heads of the family of Judah and Benjamin, and the priests of the Levites, everyone whose spirit God has stirred, got ready to go up and rebuild the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. All their neighbors aided them with silver vessels, with gold, with goods, with neighbors aided with animals and with valuable gifts, beside all that was freely offered. King Cyrus himself brought out the vessels of the house of the Lord that Nebuchadnezzar had carried away from Jerusalem. That's
sorry, it's not the last one. She said it's earlier for
and placed in the house of his goods. King Cyrus of Persia had them released into the charge of Meagan, the treasurer, who counted them out to Shashbazzar.
Sure, of course.
The prince of Judah, and this was the inventory: gold basins, 30 silver basins, 1,000 knives, 29 gold bowls, 30 other silver bowls, 410 other vessels of thousands. The total of the gold and the silver vessel was 5,400, and all Shashbazzar brought up when the exiles were brought up from Babylonia to Jerusalem. Let us sing together our prayer from illumination. I will come to you. Stephanie will lead us. Verse 1 and
2. Amen. So, any World Cup fans here? Yeah. Who's your team? Argentina. Are they still in?
Yeah.
No,
They're out. Shoot. Anybody else? Soccer, football fans? Yes, Brandon, who's your team? Nigeria. How are they doing? They still in? They're out. You guys have mixed in their teams. Friends of mine are big Germany fans, and they're way out. And you might hear them say, "Oh well, you know, this is a rebuilding year." Right? It's a rebuilding year. It's a phrase that sports fans of many kinds hate to hear. Because it's usually a cover-up, a way of trying to make a bad news sound better. It's a rebuilding year means we're not going to win a whole lot this year. And maybe we imagine that our trusted coaches are pouring their energy into redesigning and re-envisioning the makeups of our favorite teams, but it takes time, right? And what we want is to win now. Keisha crossing. Even the word "re" kind of makes us nervous, right? Building, we could get behind. Like we want to build a new house or build a faster jet or build a better future. But rebuilding sounds like it might be a real big mess to start with. And it might turn out to be the kind of work that will have us wondering before long if we shouldn't just maybe burn it all down and start again. Well, today we begin our summer study in the book of Ezra. This is a story about rebuilding. Not some sort of ancient sports team, but rebuilding a temple, a protective wall, and a people. The story begins with Israelites who've been captured and taken captive to live in Babylon, right? We've talked about these folks in the exile a lot, and they've lived there now for a few generations. Children have been born there, and perhaps some have given up hope that they would ever return to their home. They carried maybe some small mementos of their homeland with them, but mostly they had the memories, the stories that were passed down, the sites of their temple, and their lives being torn apart, stone from stone, by the Babylonian army. So when we pick up the book of Ezra, the Persians, under the leadership of King Cyrus, have defeated Babylon. Now they are in charge, and they have a really different strategy for how to rule conquered nations. So the Babylonians believed that you take the important and influential people out, take them to Babylon, send your own people there, kind of control things that way. The Persians had an approach with a little bit more honey, you might say. They would let the people return home. They would help them to rebuild their lives. They would support their religious institutions, and in return, invite them forcefully to pay a tax and a tribute. And so it happened in the first year of King Cyrus of Persia, an edict was written that said, "Thus says King Cyrus of Persia, the Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has charged me to build him a house at Jerusalem in Judah. Any of those among you who are his people, may their God be with them, are now permitted to go up to Jerusalem and Judah and to rebuild the house of the Lord, the God of Israel. He is the God who is in Jerusalem, and let all survivors in whatever place they reside be assisted by the people of their place with silver and gold, with goods and with animals, besides free will offerings for the house of God in Jerusalem." How did those exiles feel when they heard this news? What's going to happen next? We're going to spend the rest of our summer following their story and talking about these things, because we too are in a rebuilding year. We are quite literally about to undertake a building project, if, as Presbyterians like to say, the way be clear, or if, as my grandfather would say, God willing and the creek don't rise. We're celebrating a major anniversary, and we're taking stock of where we have been and of where we are going. We're beginning to sort out the precious items from these rooms in our church, honoring the long life of furniture and supplies lovingly given and discerning between treasure and junk. We are, in a way, rebuilding our temple. In our preparations for the celebration of our 125th anniversary, and by the way, thank you to Lisa and Jody, ticket sales are now live on the website. In preparation for this anniversary, with the help of Lori and Jen and Tanya, they've been sending me pieces of our history that it's important for me to read, and we've been sharing and talking about these things together. So this week, I spent a moment with this little booklet from our 75th anniversary in 1968. Oh, look at that. Also, I want you to just take note of Reverend Sarbeck's cat in his family photo. Yes, hashtag clergy portrait goals. I will pass the screen to look at. As I read, I was struck by just how much we have been, throughout our history, a church that builds and rebuilds. The first church building was dedicated on May 6, 1894, and it cost $3,500 to build. $1,894. Now, not content to let things be as they were, the congregation clamored to remodel the building, and the renovations began in July of 1900. That's only 6 years later. I think that seems to be when the sanctuary was raised to the second floor at a cost of about $6,800, a debt that took the congregation 10 years to pay off. In 1917, a parsonage was first purchased, a home for the pastor and his wife, located on Haskell Avenue. In the 20s, new pulpit furniture was purchased and updated, and those changes held everyone over for about 30 years while the congregation grew and flourished. In 1954, the exterior of the church was updated, painted, exterior lights were installed, and then came the major renovations from 1955 to 1962. The sanctuary and what was then called the vestibule were totally redone. Floors, ceilings, walls, everything. Those light fixtures in the sanctuary, those were put in those years. And it was the first part of a 3-step project that cost the congregation $115,000. In 1961, the manse on Haskell Avenue was sold, and for about 20 grand, the one next door was built. And that was a debt that took the congregation 3 years to pay off. Then the education wing, where all the Sunday school rooms are, and the gym, was built in 1962, and a $75,000 mortgage came with it. By 1968, so 6 years later, the debt was down to $27,000, and the writer of this section in the booklet, Mr. Robert J. Malcolmson, noted this was less than $170 per member. Isn't that exactly Bob?
Hint, hint.
And that's just until 1968, 75 years. There's 50 more years of history after that to come, but just in these 75 years, this little church was a church that was always at work building or rebuilding something. And the echoes between then and now are really striking. When this church was founded, its regular Sunday attendance was 47 people. And its average offering, about $47 at the end of the 19th century, was, in today's dollars, about $1,200. We average about 45 people a Sunday, and hopefully a little bit more than $1,600 in an offering, but we're carrying some continuity with our history here. The initial building project that the congregation undertook, that $6,800 project in 1900, the one that took them 10 years to pay off, in today's dollars, our church raised $193,000. Kind of what we're thinking about raising for our elevator now. See, this is the thing about rebuilding. It means that we're not the first to do it. We're not starting from scratch. We have this community, we have its history, our heritage as a place that builds, and we can breathe a small sigh of relief because we, our own ancestors, our mothers and fathers of faith in this place, have done this before. And not just once, but over and over again, they stepped out in faith to follow where God might lead. It was not always easy, we know, but their legacy shows us that their faith was made into reality in this tangible place. And it's not merely our story, not only the story of this place. As Christians, we inherit a legacy of builders and rebuilders, of people stepping out in faith time and time again, trusting that God really was making all things new. Finally, released from captivity after all those years and free to go rebuild their homes and rebuild their temple, the Israelites may have thought to themselves, like some of us now, how are we going to do this? But God had provided, and King Cyrus was one step ahead of them. To begin with, he gave the people back the things that had been taken from them, from their temple, by the Babylonians. He gave them back their past. We too have a strong past from which to build. Not only do we have the long ago stories of our founders and their families, but we have newer stories of children who feel at home in a place where people of different colors of skin and different sounding accents participate in one community of love and hope. So with the power of our multicultural witness, we will build. We have a church that welcomes all, regardless of who they are or where they come from, regardless of who has given them a side eye before or who believes that they deserve to live in this country. With the power of this welcome, we will build. We have a church that is alive with the voices of children who drag their parents here on Sunday mornings. Our kids are learning to be part of our church, to be leaders in it, and their sense of ownership is inspiring. With the power of our youth, we will build. And finally, we have the testimony of two great saints who passed away this year, Marie Malcolmson and Bob Malcolmson. Marie's power was her fierce determination, her joy in the face of damn near anything. And Bob's was faithfulness, an unwavering commitment to the truth that was tempered with love and curiosity and humor. And it is with the power of these two saints that we will build. But it's not just hopes and dreams and the stuff of their past that King Cyrus gives the Israelites as they return home. He tells their neighbors, the Babylonians and the other captives that they have built their homes among, King Cyrus tells their neighbors to help them, to give them silver and gold and goods and animals and offerings. The people of Israel believed and trusted that God would accomplish this enormous task through them, and so they didn't shy away from any help that was offered from any corner. And that's still God's invitation to us today. Are we willing, like those Israelites all those thousands of years ago, to turn to our neighbors and our friends, our families, and our colleagues and tell them the power of this place? Are we ready to ask them to join us in the work that God has put before us? It may well be that we, like the Israelites in captivity, have grown comfortable with the way things are. So comfortable we forget to imagine or to hope for more. That we forget to trust the immense richness of God's plan for us and choose instead the small boundaries of what is already here. Friends, this is our rebuilding year. It is not our first, and it almost certainly won't be our last. But rebuilding is not an excuse for a team that can't win. It's an opportunity to see and live in a more expansive vision of the kingdom of God right here in this place. May God's temple be rebuilt in our time. May our neighbors bring us their gifts. May we see new energy, new creation, new peace in this place. May all these things be so.
Amen.